Hearings officer, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you for your patience.
Uh, It seems like everything's ready on that end. Can we begin, or is there still some stuff to take care of?
We can begin.
Okay, great. Then we will go on the record. The time is 1:14 p.m., and this is the hearing for Deschutes County file number 247-25106-TA, which is a request by the applicant to make certain amendments to the county's development code. My name is Tommy Brooks, and I am the hearings officer in this matter. Before we get to the substance of the hearing, I'm going to turn things over to Ms. Stewart to describe how the participation process works.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name's Audrey Stewart, and I'm an associate planner with the Deschutes County Planning Division. The item before the hearings officer is a text amendment to section 1867040 of the Deschutes County Code regarding the Tumalo Commercial District. The proposed amendments would allow a recreational vehicle park as a conditional use in this zone and establish siting and approval criteria for new RV parks in this zone. Today's hearing will proceed as follows. First, staff will explain the hearing format and how to testify at today's hearing. This will be followed by a brief presentation on the application. The county has established time limits for testimony as follows: 30 minutes for the applicant, 10 minutes for any public agencies, 3 minutes for the general public, and then 10 minutes for the applicant's rebuttal. However, the hearings officer can modify or eliminate these time limits. When the testimony portion of the hearing begins, the applicant will present first, followed by any agencies who are here, followed by persons in support, and then those in opposition will testify, followed by anyone who is neutral. Afterwards, the applicant will then be afforded an opportunity to present rebuttal testimony. And finally, staff can make any closing comments. This is a hybrid public hearing with both in-person and remote participation. Before starting your testimony, please provide your first and last name, as well as your mailing address. For our in-person participants, if you wish to testify, please add your name to the sign-in sheet, which is by the door over here. I will use this list to call up participants for their testimony. After your name is called, please come up to one of the tables at the front of the room, here, and before beginning your testimony. For our remote participants, if you want to testify, you must be logged into Zoom or have called in using the Zoom dial-in option. When Hearings Officer Brooks asks if anyone attending remotely would like to testify, you'll need to use the raise hand feature to notify staff. To do this, you need to press the raise hand button on your computer or smart device, or if you've called in, dial *9. In addition to oral testimony, if anyone has written testimony to submit, please hand it to me. If you're in person, please submit your testimony to me after your oral testimony. And if you're participating remotely, you can submit your written testimony to me via email at audrey.stewart@deschutes.org. Hearings Officer Brooks and staff are responsible for conducting an orderly hearing. Any testimony or behavior which is inappropriate will be addressed and may result in that member of the public being removed. Are there any objections to the format of the hearing? If you're attending remotely and have an objection, please use the raise hand function. And if you are in person, you can raise your hand if there are any objections to the hearing format. Seeing none, I will turn the hearing back over to Hearings Officer Brooks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Stewart. And as just described, we are following the hearing procedures that are set forth in the county's code, and I will provide sufficient opportunity for everyone to participate at the appropriate time. This application is being considered in part through a quasi-judicial process. I will consider only the factual evidence that is in the record, and I will then apply those facts to any relevant provisions of the county's comprehensive plan and land use regulations. The hearings officer's role in this particular type of proceeding is to ensure that the county's process is followed and to make a recommendation to the county's Board of Commissioners regarding the proposed text amendments. The county's Board of Commissioners must make the final decision on any text amendments to the code. The standards and applicable criteria relevant to the hearing were identified in the public notice announcing the hearing. They're also set forth in the staff report. The public notice and the staff report are posted on the county's website, and they're also available directly from staff upon request. It is important that you direct all of your testimony to the standards and applicable criteria. If you believe a criterion applies that was not listed, you may address the unlisted criterion. However, I urge you to also explain why the criterion must apply and to do so with specificity so that other participants may respond and so that I can address that issue in my decision. The failure to raise an issue with enough detail that enables me or others to respond precludes your ability to appeal that issue to the Land Use Board of Appeals. And the failure to raise a constitutional or other issue relating to any proposed condition of approval, again, with enough detail that allows me to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. As I noted, I serve as the county's hearings officer, and in that role, my job is to be a neutral decision maker. Thus, while I have a contract with the county to serve in this role, I am obligated to remain impartial, and I do not represent the county's interests or the interests of any participant. To that end, I'll state for the record that I do not have any relationship with the applicant, and I am not aware of any connections that I may have to other participants in this proceeding that would prevent me from remaining impartial. I have communicated briefly with staff about the procedures for today's hearing, but not the substance of the application, and I do not have any ex parte contacts to disclose. We want to be as efficient as we can. I know there was a lot of public comments that were provided to the record, so at this point, is it possible, Ms. Stewart, to figure out how many people have signed up to testify?
Yes, and before we proceed, hearings officer, someone did raise their hand over Zoom. So if it's okay, we wanted to confirm whether they just had a general comment or if they did have an objection to either the hearing format.
Okay, if we could confirm that this would be just for objections to the hearing format.
Correct. One person raised their hand on Zoom. So we're just going to quickly elevate them to confirm whether they were objecting to the hearing format. And just for the benefit of the group, general comments we'll save for the general public testimony section.
Hello, I am wondering if the hearings officer is located here in Bend for this public hearing?
No, I'm appearing remotely.
And I'm wondering why the applicant gets 30 additional minutes on this whole proceeding versus members of the public.
These are pretty standard time limits that we're using. And if as we go through it, if we need more or less time in a certain area, I'll be sure to adjust to that. But did you have an objection to
the reason I bring that up is I don't think it gives the public parity. And I think if you're trying to be a neutral decision maker, it's important for the public to have equal standing and not always prioritize a developer who seems to be, favored by the county. So I just bring that up under the construct of number one, the hearings officer is not located here to know the environment about which people are testifying, and the public is prejudiced because they're not given the same standing for testimony and time.
All right. Thank you. Could you please state your name for the record so I can record this objection?
Yes, my name is Nunzi Gould. What else did you need?
I think that's it. I think I understand the nature of your objection and your comment.
Okay, I would like to comment later. I think it's unreasonable that this hearing is being held at 1 o'clock on a work day, not in the evening when the public is on their own time. And I think it's also unreasonable that people had to notify the planner yesterday as to whether or not they would testify. That is not giving, in my opinion, goal one, the best fair due.
Thank you, Ms. Golden. I will make sure if anyone has showed up today, whether or not they signed up yesterday, if they're online or if they are in person, we will give everyone a chance to provide testimony.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So back to the numbers, Ms. Stewart, do we have a sense of the actual number of people that are signed up?
Hearings officer, we have 12 people for the in-person sign-in sheet, and then we have 22 Zoom participants.
Okay, and then do you know if we have any agencies that are going to be appearing today?
I don't believe we do.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will work through this, like I said, as efficiently as we can. Just at the outset, I'm going to keep the time periods the way that they are. I think it's pretty standard to give the applicant a chunk of time because they bear the burden of proof in the application. In my experience, they don't always take the extra 30 minutes. And if anyone feels that the time is too short to give their comments, we always have the opportunity to keep the written record open and comments can be submitted in writing. I will tell you, I treat oral comments and written comments with the exact same amount of weight. The format is not relevant. It's the substance and addressing the criteria. With that, before we begin, does anyone wish to challenge my ability to hear the matter or to challenge the county's jurisdiction over the matter? And again, if you're online, you can state your objection by raising your hand.
Hearings officer, we don't have anyone in person or on Zoom raising their hand.
Right. So thank you. With that, we can do the staff report.
Thank you. The applicant proposes amendments to Chapter 1867 of Deschutes County Code to allow an RV park as a conditional use in the Tumalo Commercial District. The applicant proposes siting standards, which would require an RV park to be sited on a lot or contiguous lots under common ownership, which abut Highway 20, are 2 to 5 acres in size and are within a sewer district. Currently, Section 18-128-170 of the Deschutes County Code sets out the standards that apply to all RV parks in Title 18. The applicant proposes to modify the wastewater and road access standards, and these changes would only impact RV parks in the Tumalo Commercial District. This application is being reviewed through a quasi-judicial process. The hearings officer will issue a recommendation, and then this will go to the Board of County Commissioners, and they will issue a decision. Staff did a preliminary analysis to get a general sense of how many properties would meet the proposed siting standards. This analysis found 2 properties within the Tumalo Commercial District that are 2 to 5 acres in size and abut Highway 20. For the benefit of everyone watching, I want to note that this proposal doesn't approve an RV park on a specific property. Any future development of an RV park would go through a property-specific review and likely require applications for a conditional use permit and site plan review. The hearings officer is only being asked to consider the proposed code changes to the Tumalo Commercial District. As of Friday, 68 public comments were submitted in opposition. Additional comments have come in today and over the weekend, and these will be uploaded by the end of the day today. The general themes of the public comments include impacts to surrounding residences, increased traffic, lack of infrastructure, conformance with the Tumalo Community Plan, and impacts to natural resources. The full record is available on the project webpage, and I can provide that link to anyone who wants it. And with that, staff is available for any questions from the hearings officer.
All right, thank you. I do not have questions for staff at this time, so we can start with the applicant.
Good afternoon, Hearing Officer Brooks. It's good to see you again. My name is Adam Smith. I'm a land use attorney with Schwabe Williamson Wyatt. My business address is 360 Southwest Bond Street, Suite 500, Bend, Oregon 97702. When it comes to the procedural objections, I'd like to weigh in on those real quickly. First of all, I would note I don't anticipate using the entire 30 minutes. We were going to ask for some flexibility with rebuttal time. If a number of people testify, 10 minutes is likely not enough time for rebuttal. And if we don't get to respond to everybody's comments, then that just results in requesting a continuance to the hearing. So with that in mind, we're flexible with the time limits. we'll of course defer to you, but if you want to waive the time limits in their entirety so we don't have a procedural objection, certainly the applicant doesn't oppose. All the other issues, we don't take a position. I don't personally think they're procedural objections that substantially impact anybody's procedural rights. But again, we don't have a strong position on any of those other issues. As noted, I'm not going to take the entirety of the 30 minutes. I'm going to talk for quite a bit, and then Joe Bestman with Transite Consulting is going to talk about traffic impacts or the lack thereof rather briefly. Like I said, I'm going to save most of my time, hopefully, for rebuttal. We don't have any slides or PowerPoint presentation just because of the difficulty of showing. I think it's more important to have the hearing officer on the screen, frankly, so we could see a reaction to the testimony. But we welcome questions, and if there are any need for maps or there's any confusion on location or any of those kinds of things, we will happily submit things into a written record period after the fact. So we've spent considerable time reviewing the public comments today, and I just have 3 introductory comments based on a lot of those comments about what this hearing is not about. I think it's important to really set the stage for why we're here today and what we're specifically seeking. So point number 1, it's not a popularity contest. As staff already noted, and as the hearing officer already noted, there are applicable decision criteria. So just being opposed to the project, just saying I'm opposed to RV parks in Tumalo is, it's not very helpful to the applicant as we're working our way through the application, to the hearings officer, to staff. The application is judged against applicable criteria, and any opposition comments or concerns need to be really tied to that applicable criteria. It's our position, of course, that we meet all the applicable criteria. Otherwise, we wouldn't have submitted the application in the first place. Second, and this is getting pretty nuanced, but I did want to know as much for the folks in the room. This is not a forum to debate houselessness in our community. That is its very own complicated issue. But to be perfectly honest, it has nothing to do with our application. We're not proposing a trailer park. We're not proposing transient lodging. I can't imagine that anything that's being proposed actually imposes a public safety concern. And there are a lot of comments in the record that are using, I think, some of those loaded terms. And I think they're missing entirely what's being proposed, which I will get into here in a minute. But again, this is not for transitional or transient lodging at all. And then this is not a conditional use permit. It's not a debate about any particular RV park. It is a quasi-judicial text amendment where there are, only a few properties that qualify. And one of those properties is admittedly my client's property. And we are admittedly exploring RV park options in the future, but that's all at a very conceptual level. We don't have specific plans. We don't have renderings of exactly what's going to be built. We don't have those things because why would we go forward with pulling together specific build-ready drawings until we know if the use is even going to be allowed? When it comes to infrastructure and a lot of those issues, really, we only have to show that it's feasible. We don't have to dot all the I's, cross all the T's at this point. All of that comes later with the conditional use permit itself. So again, this is, higher level questions about RV parks more generally on the couple of locations that have been proposed, not any specific RV park on any of those properties. So what this hearing is about? Well, I think it's really 2 big issues. The first issue, before we even get into RV parks, is a conversation about the appropriate commercial uses in the Tumalo Commercial District. At the very outset of the county code provision is a purpose statement. Typically speaking, as I'm sure Hearing Officer Brooks is aware, purpose statements are deemed non-regulatory. In this case, the county commissioners a few years ago, 5 or so years ago, deemed that the purpose statement, in this particular case, in part because it doesn't say purpose statement, is regulatory. And so that means that a whole bunch of uses, a whole bunch of commercial uses that have been approved in the Tumalo Commercial District, if they were to be reapproved today, or even if those existing uses needed to expand and go through land use permitting again, they frankly may have a more difficult time being approved because what has now been deemed as a regulatory provision is fairly limited and doesn't honestly align with the commercial uses in the Tumalo Commercial District. And so I think yeah, it poses a risk to not only my client's potential developments, but all potential commercial developments in the Tumalo Commercial District. The state rules allow the county to be much broader than that purpose statement it allows, and specifically allowing those commercial uses to serve the traveling public. And so our application seeks to ask that question: should the county code comply with what's allowed by state law to allow those commercial businesses to serve Tumalo, the surrounding area, and the traveling public? That last addition, I think, would clarify a lot of the ambiguity. I think it would frankly align with the uses that have been proposed in the commercial district and should be supported long before we get into any of the RV park issues. Then second, this is a conversation about RV parks in Tumalo, not countywide, just Tumalo. We disagree with the characterization that we're seeking to allow RV parks. RV parks have always been allowed. Historic RV parks have always been allowed. So I think the better characterization is that we are proposing to convert historic limitations to geographic limitations in the Tumalo Commercial District. Our research, and we couldn't find anything conclusive, but we did a fair amount of research, and we're talking these decisions were made decades ago. But our research indicates that the historic limitation was put in place because of the lack of historically central sewer in the Tumalo area. That means that I think this is a good candidate for revisiting that issue now that a Tumalo sewer district has been formed. And that's exactly why we propose to amend the code. Again, it's not allowing RV parks in the Tumalo Commercial District on every single property. The idea is to convert these historic limitations to some very specific geographical limitations. With those geographical limitations, frankly, making sense with the use on any individual property, with proximity to Highway 20, with being within that sewer district, and the like. As staff noted, there are only 2 properties that, based on our proposal, thus appear to meet that criteria. One of them is noted as my client's property. That property is uniquely situated. It's adjacent to a state highway. It's adjacent to the newly constructed roundabout. It is within the newly formed sewer district. And very importantly, to address some of the public comments, it's adjacent to state property that provides direct access to the river. In fact, there's a trail that goes directly from my client's property to the river and then continues on to Tumalo State Park. So this is a uniquely situated property in Tumalo and provides recreational amenities. And it's for all those reasons that once the sewer district was formed, we proposed a text amendment and are looking to revisit some of these things. Why? Why are we looking to revisit some of these issues with RV parks? Well, there's clearly a need. I mean, Deschutes County, on their own volition, on their own nickel, commissioned a pretty expensive and comprehensive study analyzing the lack of RV parks in the community and the impacts, in particular, to federal public lands. And the county study is in the record, and it highlights the need for additional RV parking and all camping opportunities because of the impacts that we're experiencing from dispersed camping to federal public lands. And so the county has already identified that, hey, we need, Bend has grown, Central Oregon has grown, Deschutes County has grown, and the number of people coming to this area to camp or to stay in alternative lodging or even cheaper lodging has increased with all of that growth, and yet we haven't permitted a new private RV park in Deschutes County for decades. You know, part of the reason from our perspective that that's occurred is because Deschutes County Code 18-128-170, which are the specific standards for doing an RV park anywhere in the county, I would say is a bit of a gold standard. It forces not a high-end RV park, but the highest end RV park, making those RV parks extremely expensive to develop, especially in a rural environment. I mean, in order to provide every single RV space with its own septic connection, requires a high level of infrastructure, a very large septic system or connection to a central sewer district to practically and affordably do it. And so that really precludes doing a lot of dispersed camping. And so that forces these kinds of RV parks to more developed areas where you have that infrastructure. It also necessitates more expensive rates for anybody to realistically get a return on their investment. And that's why, big picture, this is not transient lodging. And a lot of the public's concerns about this RV park evolving into something akin to a trailer park are frankly just misplaced. It's too expensive to develop. The rates will be too high. This will be much more, or if approved and goes forward, it will be much more akin to the Bend RV park that was just approved off of the same highway on the south end of Bend. I mean, that's just the general economics of what needs to be built based on that 18128-170 standard in the code. We're not seeking to amend those standards countywide, but we are seeking to massage those standards so practically an RV park can be developed in the Tumalo Commercial District. And I think there was also a little bit of confusion on some of staff's comments when it comes to septic systems and sewer in the staff report. What we're proposing is to only have relief to not have to provide individual hookups for every RV slip until central sewer services are provided. We're also asking for relief from the requirement to provide laundry services, but by no means are we asking for relief for the need to provide toilets. And so there were some comments and questions about from the building department, and particularly about the need for toilets. That's already mandated by the code. We're not deviating from that. It's not just any number of toilets. There's a very specific ratio that must be provided, and we're not changing any of those things. But the idea would be that those services can be provided off of a septic system, and then just the laundry facilities and an RV or a connection for each RV slip would be provided at a later date if and when central sewer services are provided. So when it comes to the future conditional use permit application, that will need to be demonstrated. It will need to be shown that the existing septic system on the property or an expanding septic system can meet the needs for just those bathrooms, right? That near-term step. It will also need to, the CUP will also need to demonstrate that all the roads, for example, meet the county code criteria. And that's then the second thing that we're seeking to amend just in the Tumalo Commercial District. The county's, again, as I said, gold standard provision requires that all RV parks are accessed from collector and arterial roads. There are not that many collector or arterial roads, which again is forcing RV parks in our community to more developed areas. And that proposes an impediment to RV parks being developed. In this particular case, rather than just a blanket statement that they must be or RV parks must be off of collector or arterial roads, we're proposing only within the Tumalo Commercial District a little bit more flexibility. So rather than the over-regulatory blanket statement, we're proposing a more factor-based decision where the applicant needs to show that all of the issues and criteria that frankly were identified by the county road department have been met. And if all of those criteria, those factors have been met, then it allows an RV park to access off of something other than a collector or arterial road. Again, that's not before the hearings officer today. That determination will come at a later date with a conditional use permit get submitted. We're just looking to, as I said, massage the code to figure out how RV parks could work in this particular zone because of the pronounced need throughout the community. With that in mind, we're not opposed to any additional improvements or amendments to the code. I mean, we're in a bit of a unique circumstance here because this has been determined to be a quasi-judicial text amendment. That determination in our application, that idea of this being a quasi-judicial text amendment happened hand in hand with county staff and was in direct response to another recent text amendment that went to the Planning Commission. It only impacted one or a couple of properties, and it was denied, recommended for denial first by the Planning Commission, and then ultimately denied by the county commissioners because it was deemed to be quasi-judicial and should have gone through a different process. honestly, we don't take a strong position one way or the other on that issue. We're being pragmatic in our proposal, and so we certainly consent to this being treated as a quasi-judicial text amendment that comes through a hearing officer. But that's important because normally these kinds of applicant-initiated text amendments, once the applicant proposes language, it kind of takes on a life of its own. And they go in front of the Planning Commission, and that proposed amendment can be massaged by staff. It can be massaged by the Planning Commission. It can be massaged by the county commissioners, right? It's legislative. It's different. And we're not opposed to that same kind of process here. Now, of course, that text amendment can get so far from what we initially proposed that it's no longer honoring the original application. But we're not opposed in this case to continuing to massage the language, to continuing to work through issues to figure out how RV parks can and should work in the Tumalo Commercial District. And so I end with that idea that we're open to having further conversations. We've had a lot of conversations with the county staff. We're open to further conversations with the neighborhood. In fact, we sent out a number of emails this morning to some of the people who submitted public comments more directly inviting further conversations on these issues. And it certainly is our hope to continue collaborating both with county staff and the neighbors to work on this. And so related in that idea, how does this work? How can all of this work together really comes from the Tumalo Community Plan. And I wouldn't be surprised if you hear some comments today that, this proposal is not consistent with the Tumalo Community Plan. I would push back on that idea. I've gone through the Tumalo Community Plan, and the plan doesn't get into any specific uses. It doesn't dictate this use is allowed in that zone and that other use is allowed in that zone. And in fact, I would argue that nothing in the description of the Tumalo Commercial District would prohibit RV parks. In fact, I would argue that the descriptions of the district and what's supposed to be allowed would very directly include RV parks. With the one issue, returning to the start, the need to amend that purpose statement, which has now been determined to be regulatory, to address that traveling public issue. If that issue is fixed, then I think all of the county's long-range planning efforts would very much support as opposed and by no means oppose the project. With that, I'll turn things over to Joe Bessman to talk about traffic and roads. I think he will be brief. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, we'll save our time for rebuttal.
Okay, I will have some questions, but I'll wait till you're done with your full presentation and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Hearings Examiner Brooks. For the record, Joe Bessman, Transite Consulting, 61271 Splendor Lane, Bend, Oregon, 97702. As you've heard today, the application is for a text amendment. It's not a specific plan. So what a lot of people think of as a traffic study is a little bit different. As you're likely aware, what we do for a text amendment or a zone change is really just provide a comparative analysis to address the Transportation Planning Rule section on Plan and Land Use Regulation amendments. Effectively, what can you build in the current zoning, and what can you build in this scenario with the text amendment in place? In the current Tumalo commercial zoning, there's a number of allowed uses that are very intense: eating and drinking establishments, offices, mixed use, retail. All of these uses are much more intense than an RV park by a factor of about 14. So the transportation analysis that you see from me is simply saying, comparatively, an RV park is less intense, therefore a significant impact does not occur. So pending any questions from you, that's really all I have on transportation.
Okay, thank you. I don't think, well, I might have a question about transportation, but let me start with some other areas. Mr. Smith, is that the conclusion of your main presentation?
That's the conclusion. That's all we have for you. Okay.
I'm just going to work through a couple of the issues that jumped out to me as I was preparing and then in response to your presentation. On the purpose statement, and I'm just trying to get my head around this. I understand your desire to change that if the purpose statement in this scenario is more regulatory. But if RV parks have always been allowed as conditional uses under C8, doesn't the purpose statement implicitly already cover RV parks? Otherwise, they wouldn't have been allowed. Like, why? Tell me more about the true need to get this language into the purpose statement.
Again, I think it's not only just for the RV parks. I think it's a benefit to the entire commercial, any existing commercial business that may need to expand in the future, and or new business in Tumalo. This is not isolated just to RV parks. But we'll include the decision in the record. But there was a decision several years ago where Deschutes County commissioners specifically interpreted that provision to be regulatory. And so whereas before it was always treated loosely, and I think that's why RV parks were, or at least RV parks were allowed historically in the district, as assuming that it met that purpose statement, at least more aspirationally. I think it poses more of a direct issue now that somebody can come along and say, hey, RV parks in the district do not only serve Tumalo and the surrounding area. I mean, self-evidently, RV parks or plenty of other uses are serving folks driving through Tumalo as well, and so therefore that application should be denied. So we're seeking to just correct that issue, both for RV parks, but for the entire Tumalo business community, so to avoid that kind of issue going forward. I would note, since the decision, since county staff, or excuse me, since the county commissioners did determine that provision to be regulatory, there have been a number of applications, land use applications that have been permitted in Tumalo Commercial District. I'll be frank that I think those findings have been waving their hands at the issue a little bit, and it really just hasn't come up because nobody has used it as a means to try and block development. But I wouldn't want my client in this case or any other client to have to be that test case in the future, when it's certainly pretty easy to fix that language so it aligns entirely with state rules.
Thank you for that answer. My next question is not getting down to where you actually have changed the uses in subsection C of the code and the conditional uses. I guess I wasn't expecting, when I first read the proposal, to see the strikeout of RV parks under section 8. It sounds like there are existing RV parks. I'm curious about the need to strike that from subsection 8, even as you're adding subsection 14.
Honestly, I don't think we have a strong position on how the mechanism of how this has changed. We proposed in that fashion just to distinguish RV park. Right now in the current code, I think it's manufactured home parks or mobile home parks, and RV parks are treated as one and the same. And so just to make it easier for the additional proposed provisions to reference more clearly just the RV parks, we thought this was just a cleaner mechanism to get there. You know, I think both of your questions are teasing at an interesting idea, right? Like, well, let me deviate. I don't know if there are any RV parks. I don't believe there are any existing RV parks in Tumalo currently. I think over the decades, all that were pre-existing have gone. I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty confident that's the case. But your questions are really teasing at an interesting idea. If the intention way back when was to not allow RV parks in the Tumalo Commercial District at all, then certainly the county had the option then to just say no, to not include them, and then any pre-existing RV parks would have been non-conforming uses. The fact that the county allowed RV parks but only pre-existing ones, to me, is a bit of a nod that they are and always were intended to be compatible with the Tumalo Commercial District, but they put some limitations, the historic limitations around them because of sewer issues. I think those are all presumptions on my part, but I think those are pretty valid presumptions based on long-range planning efforts, right? Like, if the intention was to state these are not compatible and shouldn't be allowed in the district at all, they would have just never been allowed, and then any existing RV parks would have been allowed to continue as non-conforming uses.
All right. Thank you for entertaining that question. I'll just say for you, and I guess really for everyone that's listening too, I mean, I don't treat my job as obviously as being the one to make the legislative decision here with policies, but I do think that it's prudent for me to identify all the issues for the board when they take up the issue, and to this latest point, to identify impacts. So I don't know if there are existing RV parks. It seems like something I will highlight to the board for their consideration is whether or not the strikeout then creates some non-conforming uses that wouldn't otherwise be non-conforming uses in the same way. So that's kind of behind my question. And again, I'm going to stay out of the legislative part of this and try to just go with the procedural part. But make sure that the board knows at least how someone like me reads the code changes. So with that in mind, I think one of the last questions I have for you, well, maybe a couple more. In your new language, which is subsection J, and then in 2, this is where you speak to the wastewater issue and being able to delay connecting to a sewer system until it's available. What are the I guess, how would an RV park handle wastewater and the absence of a sewer system? And does there need to be any more detail in the code to address that in order to, I guess, achieve some of the comprehensive plan policies about clean water or other issues? I can't tell from your proposal how wastewater would be handled in between the time that it's approved and when the sewer system is made available.
Yeah. I'll go back to the previous question and just know if you think it's cleaner here in Officer Brooks to leave RV parks in place and then just include the additional limitations on RV parks, we're not opposed. Again, we're not. There's more than one ways to structure this text amendment. We don't have a strong opinion on the structure. So our intention has always been that all of the other gold standard, as I described them, requirements in the Deschutes County Code that apply countywide can realistically, I think, be met in the Tumalo Commercial District with on-site septic systems. You can provide on-site, you can provide bathrooms as are already required by the code at a certain number per RV spot with an on-site septic system. In order to provide each and every RV park with its own sewer connection, in order to provide the laundry facilities, starts to really tick it up into a much larger and arguably more difficult septic system to get approved in the Tumalo Commercial District. And so the idea would be that this could be RV parks, which there's a current need. There's a need today for more of these facilities in our community. And so if you lower those standards, at least in the Tumalo Commercial District, not requiring laundry and not requiring every single spot to have a connection, then you can realistically see development to occur today, RV park to development to occur in near term. We are trying to be flexible and working things out with the county. We're not proposing an amendment countywide that says, hey, just don't require laundry facilities at all anymore. And we're not saying, hey, just don't require all RV parks, or excuse me, all RV spots to be connected to sewer, which is very common. Tumalo State Park just down the road only has a small portion of their RV spots are connected to sewer. All the rest of them are dry camping, at least when it comes to sewer. And so we're not proposing such overreaching, or I don't know if it's necessarily overreaching. We're not proposing such an aggressive text amendment which changes all of the standards for RV parks across the county as a whole. Instead, we were trying to honor what I described as a gold standard, but make it flexible and make it work near term in the Tumalo Commercial District. And then if those are, if that's really the standard that the county wants, if that's the high standard that the county commissioners want for all RV parks, then when central services are provided to the district, they can be added back in. Does that answer your question? It was a long answer to, I think, a more simple question, but I think I would say more simply, it can be phased. We can provide all of the other amenities that are required by code with an on-site septic system, and then those last two amenities are frankly easier to provide with a sewer district in the future. And whether or not my client or any other property owner decides to go forward with the phased approach is really to be decided as part of the conditional use permit. Right now, it's more about just deciding if that's a feasible approach to ensure we can get some RV parks in the Tumalo Commercial District.
Yeah, right. I think you are addressing my question. I just there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just trying to flesh out more of what the proposal is. And then
I'm sorry to interrupt. You did ask about environmental impacts. I'm happy to circle back to that point as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I would know, again, the Tumalo State Park just down the street. I would know any of the numerous campgrounds on federal public lands throughout Deschutes County that are a stone's throw from lakes. The Tumalo State Park campground is a stone's throw from the same Deschutes River, or excuse me, from Tumalo Creek. None of these, none of the Tumalo State Park example or any of the campgrounds on federal public lands have connections for sewer connections for every single camping RV spot. So I think it's a pretty bold assumption to suggest that not having that gold standard that's required by the Deschutes County Code is an environmental impact, right? RVs historically and RV owners have been boondocking for decades, and there are more campgrounds that don't have connections at every single spot than not. And so to ensure that there's no environmental harm, any RV park in Tumalo Commercial District will be handled in the same way that we ensure there are no environmental harm on all of the campgrounds on federal public lands next to the numerous lakes along the Cascade Lakes Highway. That is, people take their effluent off-site and they dump it somewhere else. There's a dump station just on the north end of Bend, a stone's throw from the proposed campground. So to suggest that not having a connection for every single spot automatically means that there's an environmental harm, means that every single campground on federal public lands is a risk of environmental harm. And I think that's a bit of an unsupported statement.
My last question at the very end, and this is subsection, I guess J2C. This is the transportation impacts. I just, as I was reading it, it feels a little vague, and I guess I was trying to figure out what the difference is in this language and sort of how impacts to the transportation system would be treated under the normal course. Is this adding something? Or are you trying to capture kind of an existing standard?
I would say it's a little bit of both. I would tend to agree with you. I think one option would be to just delete the requirements in Deschutes County Code that are applicable countywide that requires RV parks to be accessed from arterial collectors, and then existing county code provisions would already ensure that those conditional uses are not uniquely posing an infrastructure issue. But in this particular case, we were being very purposeful and mindful and not proposing a countywide text amendment. We're proposing a text amendment that only applies to the Tumalo Commercial District. So we had some back and forth with the County Road Department. They noted that they were opposed to striking that language in its entirety because its intent, I mean, if you read their correspondence, they're kind of acknowledging that it's a bit of an over-regulatory provision, but the intent of the provision is to then address all those factors that we just recodified in the code. So I would say it represents a change in philosophy in how roads are, or excuse me, how access roads to RV parks are addressed in the Tumalo Commercial District. It's more subjective, provides more opportunities for development, and moves away from an over-regulatory standard that exists throughout the rest of the county. But functionally speaking, I don't think it changes the standards all that much compared to what would occur if you just struck that language from the code in its entirety.
Okay.
We would certainly not be opposed to striking the collector or arterial requirement from a countywide code, but I think that would probably need to be done for a different text amendment process.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions for you, so you can, of course, come back up for rebuttal.
Thank you.
Mr. I don't know if if you gathered information for if people were testifying in support or in opposition. I get the sense that it's going to be mostly people testifying in opposition, but I would like to, if anyone either online or in the room is here specifically to support the application, I would like to take them first.
And so for folks in the room, if you want to raise your hand, and hearings officer, to clarify, was that just seeing the divide of those in opposition or in support?
Well, I would like to get the kind of our normal course would be to have those in support testify first. And so that's what I'm looking for.
So for folks in the room, just show of hands, if you are here, you would like to testify and you would like to testify in support. raise your hand. We'll do a second poll later for those who want to testify neutral or in opposition. And for those of us joining over Zoom as well, use the raise hand feature if you would like to testify and you would like to testify in support of the application. We have no one in person raising their hand. We have no one on Zoom who's raised their hand.
Okay, then we'll just we'll start with your list, and you can call folks up in order, and we'll just, if for some reason there's someone who's neutral, we'll just take it all at the same time.
Thank you, hearings officer. So for those in the room, I will call you up using the sign-in sheet here. If you haven't signed up and you would like to testify, there's an additional one on the table there. So if you need to last minute sign up, you can do that. Running through the list of those who signed up in person, we have Sam Darius. Sam, are you here and would you like to testify? Okay, so that was Sam Davis. They wouldn't like to testify. I also see a Carolyn. Are you in the room and would you like to testify today? No testifying, okay. The next one I see, you'll have to bear with me. I believe it's Bart Tallis or Fallis at 19914 Elm Lane. Bert, would you like to testify today? Okay. We now have Medley. Would you like to testify today? Okay, you can come up to the table here.
Hello. Thank you for taking the time today. I don't have anything formally planned to talk about, but I am in opposition. Specifically, I live on Wood Avenue, which is just behind the Tumalo Feed Company, and one of the proposed sites.
And could I get your,
is
sorry, could I get your name, please?
Jason-
I didn't catch it.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Could you please state your name?
Oh, sorry, not done this before. Medley Brandel.
Thank you.
I live on Wood Avenue, and I believe that the proposal is amending that having one of the sites with direct access to Highway 20, which then would cause, my belief is that it would cause excess RV traffic on my road specifically. Since the new roundabout was put in, Wood Avenue would be the road that would get the RVs to the proposed site near Paisano's Pizza. I find that to be impactful to the daily life of that neighborhood, especially the young children that live there. I am also concerned about fire risk and safety of evacuation if the RV park does not have access to Highway 20 immediately. The other thing is the wastewater situation. As we all know, Tumalo has not had a robust sewer system for many, many years, and I don't see that actually happening. And I know in the language in this proposal, it says as soon as it's going to be available, they'll hook it up, but there is no proposal for that right now. So that could be decades of no more sewer system being developed. And so then, again, it's just the same thing. There's no sewer system for it. I also think it's interesting that there are these standards that the Tumalo development wants to have in place, meaning the sewer system and the road access, and those are the two main things that the applicant is trying to change. Also, Bend and Sisters both have RV parks. I don't think that Tumalo needs to have 2 additional or even 1 additional RV park. There are 23 full hookup sites at Tumalo State Park Camping Ground, as well as 50 dry camping grounds. So I don't think that Tumalo specifically needs to add more to that. I think that people can find that kind of vacationing in Sisters and in Bend, and they are, of course, welcome to come and visit Tumalo, go to the Bite, and those things. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jim Moores on Pine Lane. And Jim, would you like to testify today? Okay.
So my name's Jim Moores. I live at 19920 Pine Lane, Bend, Oregon, 97703. And it's a small community, and it has been. I've been there for 38 years, and everything's changing in the whole area, and the proposition to put sewers in, and I disagree with that whole situation because it's going to cause homeowners to pay, I heard, like a large amount of money to have our roads dug up. And then all it would do was get rid of the dirty water, and we're still required to have a septic system like we have, which is not needed to add to it. And that's looks like it's a long ways away. But I just think that land, it's been empty for a long, long time. I mean, a community garden, something different. I was thinking, like in some other areas, they put in specialty shops like art shops, a flower shop, things like that. But I realized that costs a lot more money to get that put in. But I just think with the roads changes and like she was speaking with, I agree with that too, that, it's just something that's going to change the whole community. I can hardly drive out of the road right where the bite is to make a turn. I've had to change my whole situation where I go down this other road in order to avoid all the traffic because all the parked cars are there. That's a different situation, the bite. But this is just going to add some more kind of congestion in our area. And basically, that's my complaint. And it's, it's just, I don't think it's the best use of a property there. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Next, we have Sarah Balling.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having this hearing, and I appreciate my community members being here. My name is Sarah Bolling, Bolling. I live at 64144 Tumalo Rim Drive. I am the vice president of the Tumalo Rim Property Association. I am not representing them here today. I want to mostly point out the fire. We're already in an extreme fire zone, according to the Forest Service map. How many people's fire house insurance was canceled or dropped or hard to get renewed? The evacuation route, I would love to know what that would be. That would have to go down Wood Avenue or up Bailey. While community members are trying to evacuate, you have people with their RVs hooking up their RVs. I'm also wondering about emergency service access, so ambulance, fire department, currently on Wood Avenue. So it is mostly speaking to the property that's over by Paisanos. How would a fire engine get there and ambulance get there if there was some sort of mass situation? I want to, Mr. Smith over here mentioned lowering the standards of Tumalo. That is not something that the community members of Tumalo would appreciate. I want the gentleman that owns the property there to obviously be able to benefit however he can from his investments. I think impacting community members negatively is not something that we should have to endure in order for him to make money. No one needs RV camping in Tumalo. Tumalo State Park is right there. It's gorgeous. It is busy all the time. Many people access the state park parking and access and enjoy the river and the hiking. The influx of people in Tumalo, we don't have the infrastructure for that. It's not reasonable to have something like this. Again, Tumalo is a wonderful community, and it is unnecessary for us to have to experience the hardships that we would for an RV park. I appreciate you listening to me today, Mr. Brooks, and I'm not sure if you've ever been to Tumalo, but the map is obviously in this packet. If you ever are there in person, you might see visually that it's much smaller than, I'm not sure, again, your experience, but it's a very small community. There is not much room. I mean, even if you go to Paisanos, and the tavern, and that parking lot is full all the time. And, you know, I've lived here since 95, you know. Tumalo is completely different now. Wonderful, beautiful place. I'm happy for some growth. This is too much and unnecessary. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Next, we have Virginia Ross. Oh, and Virginia's not testifying. Moving down the list, we have Jamin Carrizosa.
For updates, but
Okay. And Jamin, would you like to testify? We next have Lisa Tierney. For updates, okay. Moving down the list, we have Nancy Baldrick.
Against it for all the reasons it's already been stated.
And Nancy, if you'd like to testify for people joining over Zoom, we can only hear you up at the microphone. Okay, just email. Diane Wadsworth. For updates, okay. Sita Kelly. For updates, okay. James Dunn.
Hi, my name's James Dunn, 65110 Swally Road in Bend. I'm opposed, greatly opposed, and I'm confused specifically with Adam's comment that he stated emphatically that the property is not transitional housing, which I appreciate. But my concern, the next line he says, no plans of what's going to be built. So there's no plan to be what's built, but he says it's not transitional housing. So what do we know what the plan is? Adam stated it's not a popularity contest, but there was a formal process called the Tumalo 2040 plan, a 2-year process in which the citizens of Tumalo, they did not request an RV park. Rather, they stated, we want to maintain our small town community. And that was the common theme that was agreed upon between the citizens of Tumalo and the county. And the RV park is going to be nothing but more traffic and congestion, which is not consistent with a small town community. The 2040 plan is built with the theme that any growth benefits the Tumalo citizens. An RV park doesn't benefit any of the citizens because we're not going to camp in our own backyard. So I have questions. How has Deschutes County survived all these years without this RV park? Are there any sites outside of Tumalo that have less impact to traffic and residents? Obviously, putting an RV park in downtown Tumalo, I just feel for all those people that live in that community, especially on Wood, but also across the street from the Bight, as well as all of us who commute through downtown Tumalo with having those RV park. Will an RV park impact the already congested streets of Tumalo, therefore impacting our small town community feel? The transportation analysis that we heard stated eating establishments, mixed use, etc., and this is in a line with that, makes no sense whatsoever. How many visitors for these commercial businesses that we have there now drive a motorhome, tow a trailer, or a fifth wheel? Obviously, a different impact and congestion than the current vehicles that are going to the Bight and the other commercial businesses. So utilizing that example is ridiculous. This proposed zoning change sets a concerning precedent of piecemeal rezoning that undermines long-term planning efforts and erodes public trust in the planning process. Again, we did a 2-year 2040 plan using Deschutes County land development, zoning, transportation to come up with this agreed upon plan. So I respectfully urge you to reject this proposed RV zoning change in Tumalo. It is inconsistent with both the letter and the spirit of our long-range planning documents and threatens the rural character and sustainability of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Next, we have Chris Cranston. Chris, are you here today and would you like to testify? Seeing no response, I'll move down the list. Next, we have Belinda. Okay, just for notifications. Next, we have Dr. Daniel Harrison. Would you like to testify today? Okay.
My name is Dan Harrison, on 64625 Mock Road, Bend, Oregon, 97701. I've been a resident of Tumalo for 40 years now, and I think that this development is an anathema to the direction that this community, as a group and as a collective, requires and wants to go. There's a number of issues that are unseen and not mentioned, that the RV park would change the local environment. A couple of these very clearly are noise pollution from RVs, generators that they use at night, the traffic, the diesel engines that pull in, the arguing of where to park, the noise in general. I think there's also a light pollution factor. It's a dark sky environment, and we like to preserve that, and there'll be lights on 24/7, security lights as well as headlights coming and going. It would really increase that aspect of it. The construction noise to create this facility would impact the neighbors. There's quite a few homes abutting that property, and disrupt their peaceful way of life. Kids walking to and from Tumalo Elementary School. There's no sidewalks. They use the streets to transport their children. All this extra heavy equipment traffic up and down a limited road system would create unnecessary danger as well. The dump station is hardly a stone's throw. I don't know how far that guy can throw a rock, but it's good 5 or 6 miles is in Bend off Empire Road. And so that's not an accurate representation of what to do with all this refuse. I think the water consumption issue is not mentioned and should be considered in our current climate change that we're all facing. Reduced water consumption is probably important, and this would probably increase the water consumption. So there has to be some remediation for that particular part of it. The applicant proposes to modify the purpose statement of the Tumalo zone to include the traffic needs of people passing through the area. What does that mean? I mean, are we supposed to provide trailer parking for people that are too lazy to go another 4 miles for a campsite? There used to be a beautification corridor through Tumalo and on up into Sisters, lighting restrictions and various restraints on what you could build. And apparently this landowner wants to change the current standards to approve a use he could benefit, the community would not. So I strongly urge you to reconsider this application and deny it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison.
Next, we have Steve Davidson for updates. Linda Barbero.
My name is Linda Barbaro. I reside at 64705 Simon Road in Tumalo. one thing that I did hear the word relevant used a couple of times, and I believe that these things are all very relevant. If you look on page 10 of the pages that you have here, you'll see the map with the 2 yellow areas. And the traffic impact will be very significant. I mean, my vet is in the town of Tumalo, and sometimes just getting home from the vet, I have to wait quite a while to make the turn to get up to Tumalo Road so that I can get home. So there will be a huge impact there. Also, I am concerned because even though this RV park may start out as just kind of like a vacation RV park, I kind of know what will happen in a couple of years. They'll try to change it so that people can live there permanently. And which I think would even be worse than just a vacation RV park. And also, I know that somebody commented about this earlier, but I feel like this meeting should have been better publicized. I've just talked to many people in the Tumalo area that didn't know anything about this.
I second that.
Yeah, and I also agree that the meeting should be held in the evening so that people can attend. I think it's a significant enough change in the community of Tumalo that it should be in the evening. And there are appropriate places for RV parks, but right in downtown Tumalo, come on, that's just not the proper place for it. And I'm really hoping that this application will be denied. And I'd like to know, would any of the speakers earlier, if they'd like to have an RV park in their neighborhood? That would be interesting to know if you would like that. I don't think so. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And just for the benefit of everyone in the room and over Zoom, anything that's not said into the microphones, the hearings officer won't hear, and then those joining us over Zoom won't hear. So it's very important to, during your testimony, to speak into the microphone and then not talk outside of testimony time. Thank you. And are you asking to testify? Okay. If you'd like to testify, you can come up to the seat here and start with your name and your mailing address.
Yeah, my name is Mike Barbaro, same address, 64705 Simon Road, Bend, Oregon, 97703. I'm just wondering why the map that's provided is so outdated. It doesn't address the roundabout. It changed almost everything having to do with the streets in that area. And it really impacts one of the properties shown.
If I may interject, just for folks in the room.
Sure.
Again, the hearings officer is joining us over Zoom. Other people are participating over Zoom. If we clap, cheer, make noise outside of it, kind of messes it up for those that are participating remotely. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
It's just kind of unbelievable that such an outdated map was provided in the proposal, unless this proposal is maybe 10 or 12 years old to where they didn't have time or the roundabout didn't exist back then. But that roundabout's been there for at least a full year now. How come we have a proposal without a current aerial view of the situation and the properties? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list, we have James Brandel. And James, would you like to testify? No. Is there anyone in the room I missed who is in person and would like to testify in opposition? Hearings officer, one person has raised their hand.
Okay.
You can come up to the table right here and state your name and your mailing address.
Yeah, hello. My name is Kelly Rourke. My mailing address is 20275 Rogers Road, Bend, Oregon, 97703. Just 2 points I wanted to bring up. Number one, the proposal is for these RV parks to be sized on 2 to 5 acre lots. Just wanted to point out that outside of these two lots of ownership, it's not really clear that any other lots may qualify in Tumalo. Therefore, this is catered to specifically to properties only and serving them. And I think that any amendments or changes to a code should benefit any and all within the district and within the area. So it seems a little bit prejudiced in that way. Second, it just makes a little bit of chicken before the egg kind of sense here. If we're talking about the sewer connections and possibly approving this for a likely sewer connection for a sewer district that has a $20,000 grant, currently at maybe $18,000 in their budget, and this is the sewer system that's coming soon. So I would just move that the commissioners table this entire proposal until such time as the sewer system is running, and then we could readdress this question then. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. That was the last of folks who are in person who would like to testify in opposition.
Okay, we can move to people online.
And so for those of us joining over Zoom, please use the raise hand feature if you would like to testify. We currently have 4 people, 5 with their hands. It's increasing as we speak, with their hands raised on Zoom.
Okay.
The first we'll call up is Austin Anderson.
Present and accounted for. My name is Austin Anderson. I am a licensed principal broker in the state of Oregon with Coldwell Banker Bain. Mailing address is 486 Southwest Bluff Drive, Bend, Oregon 97702. And I am no longer a resident of Bend. However, I lived there from 2013 to 2023. So I'm gonna try to get this done as quickly as possible. It's pretty simple. One thing that I heard from the attorney that was here earlier was basically that they want to lower the standard for building in Tumalo. So lowering the standard for building to increase their financial gain is just absolutely ridiculous. Being allowed to set up an RV park in Tumalo, which we already know has sewage system issues because it's not this, the infrastructure isn't there. It's reckless if you guys were to approve that. The roadways also do not support the amount of traffic that they already have, even with the roundabout, which I will acknowledge did seem to help keep the flow of traffic going, but it's still not set up that way. There's also a public safety decline that I would be worried about. You have random people popping into a wonderful rural community like Tumalo. They're coming in, you don't know who they are. They may be there for 5 days, 3 days, 24 hours, it doesn't matter. Is there a specific rule that they have in place about the quality of RV that can be there? Does it have to be in good condition or at least a newer model? Something that would signal that the people that are coming in actually are there for positive reasons. The other thing is working in real estate here, I have a client who does live over on Wood, and he's the one that actually brought this to my attention. And his first question was, is this going to destroy my property value? Unfortunately, my answer would be potentially. Why would you want to buy in a rural community like Tumalo that is not Bend? Tumalo is its own little area, and the people that live there have been there forever. They like where they live because it's quiet. It feels safe. You could let your kids go play out, in the front yard without necessarily worrying about somebody, kidnapping them. Now you've got an RV park. Yeah, no, not a fan. You've also got people, like I said, that have been there forever, and they have sunk their entire life savings into the property. That is the most valuable asset that they have. And if this park goes in, you're going to be destroying their biggest asset. So I'll leave it at that. I am strongly in opposition to this. And I know a lot of people think that real estate agents only care about making money. And you know what? It's nice when we do get to close the deal. But at the end of the day, I care about my clients and I care about the people of Central Oregon. And this is a terrible, terrible idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Next, we'll have Keith Hofflin.
Sorry about that. I couldn't get it to unmute. So I have a couple points I want to bring up. One was just by the previous gentleman that stated about the impairment of the property values associated with anybody living or residing in Tumalo, as well as the Tumalo Rim and the whole surrounding areas. I don't know if that's been taken into account with our planning division, as well as I'm sure with the developer. He probably doesn't worry so much about this, but with the rest of our community, it obviously is a big issue. So I'm opposed to this from a property value standpoint. The second thing is, as mentioned earlier, there's already a planning process for the community of Tumalo. I don't know where within the next 10 to 15 years, the proposed sewer is projected to come in, and I don't know why, as the lawyer pointed out, the lawyer has basically said that this is allowable within the community districting right now, but they're unwilling to pay to basically put in a sewer. I understand that it's a very expensive piece of equipment to do, and right now that makes it unviable for them to develop that property how they want to, which that's part of the reason why we want to have that gold standard here. So thanks for listening to me. Appreciate it, Mr. Brooks. And my name's Keith Covlin, 64775 Laidlaw Lane, Bend, Oregon.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have Blake Nonweiler.
There you go. Hello, my name is Blake Nonweiler. I'm a resident of Tumalo for the past 7 years. I live at 20372 Rock Canyon Road in Bend, Oregon. I also own the property 19860 8th Street, which is on the corner of Cook and 8th Avenue. I as well own mobile home parks and RV parks. There are two uses of RV parks. One is for long-term usage. The problems that we have with those RV parks is there's not much storage room. And so the storage tends to be outside of their homes and around their properties, which tends to clutter it up. If instead this is going to be a short-term RV park, they rent on the weekends, and thus in a 5-acre parcel, you're going to have somewhere between 30 and 50 RV spots. So every weekend, we as the Tumalo residents can look forward to 30 to 50 RVs coming through our community. With respect to traffic is my primary concern. The traffic circle has definitely helped the ingress and egress onto the highway. The problem with the traffic circle, at least as far as 8th Street, is as you come off the traffic circle, you can turn onto 8th Street, but as you're coming from 8th Street, you can't then go directly onto the traffic circle. You have to go down to 7th on Riverview, then turn left. So if the ingress and egress is not changed, i.e. off of Highway 20, all these RVs will be coming in off the traffic circle on 8th Street, which is not a large road, and then the egress will be down 8th Street, Riverside, 7th, and back up to Cook. This will markedly worsen our traffic problem, which with the traffic circle is definitely better, but not solved. It will overcrowd downtown. And the other issue is, that's kind of the signature entrance into Tumalo. And the question is, do we want our signature entrance into Tumalo to be an RV park? And what we hear as mobile home park owners is everybody loves mobile home parks because they're affordable living communities, but just not in my neighborhood. And I do think that there are places for them. There's Thornburg area is a great place to dry camp or develop an RV park. I think we all want downtown Tumalo to be a quaint business downtown, more along the lines of Sisters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have Nunzi Gold.
Hello, Hearings Officer Brooks. My address is 19845 J.W. Brown Road, Bend. I live in Tumalo. My address is Bend. So Tumalo has no official local government, and we fall under the county's jurisdiction. But before Deschutes County became a county in 1916, the Laidlaw town site was platted in 1904. We actually predate Bend. We're located right in the bottom of the riverbed valley of the Deschutes River. So ecologically, it's important that what we place in our community is served appropriately. Right now, there is not a large community sewer system that serves Tumalo under the current sewer district. There has been development based on a private sewer system that is not going to be expanding to this location. So the issue is when, if, how, and at what time and at what cost would a sewer system ever come to serve an RV park? So there actually are none of the properties applied for that meet the 2-acre minimum today because of this 1904 plat. And I object to the notion that people can cobble adjacent lots together under a land use application. It does not bode well for code compliance. When you have different businesses or different named ownerships that are going to cobble into 2 acres just to meet the minimum. So we have a better system now with the way Laidlaw is platted, and development can happen without this text amendment. Wood Avenue has no sidewalks. Wood Avenue skews on the alignment and the entrance to the southerly yellow parcel off of Bailey Road, and the issue is setbacks for accessing people's driveways and entrances to other existing businesses. You can turn right onto 8th Street now from Cook Avenue, but when ODOT develops their slip lane, which is projected in the 2030s, which is not that far off, there will be 2 lanes that have to merge together on Cook Avenue. Right now, there's the dedicated one out of the roundabout, and a second slip lane will be forming 2 lanes on Cook that then have to merge. The result of that is access onto 8th Street will be prohibited in turning right. And so you'll see that the request is also to be able to rejigger the road designations within Tumalo as part of this text amendment. And I find that quite the antithesis of what the community wanted when it did its 2040 plan. And I don't think a text amendment is the way to be planning our community. I think we should go back to the comprehensive plan and redo the Tumalo community plan with community involvement. And finally, the property on the north side of 20 does not actually abut state land, as was stated. And we've had some issues on just getting trail connectivity to the state park. And that has actually not forwarded through. And Deschutes County right now doesn't even provide restroom services for their own Tumalo swimming hole. So we have a real dearth on how our county steps up on its implementation of its plan. And I would suggest, since the Tumalo Community Plan was, the 2040 plan was fairly recently adopted, that we actually move forward with that before we start jiggering and cutting and pasting. I think that's all I have, other than to inform those in the audience that if you come to the mic and state your name and your address, then you will be a party to the record. If you do not do that, you might have attended the meeting, but you're not going to get notice of this hearing officer's decision unless you provide a mailing address. You don't have to actually testify for or against, but if you don't step up to provide your name and address, the county won't even give you the courtesy of giving the hearings officer's decision to you by mail.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Gould.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dawn Lillis.
Ms. Lillis, if you're speaking, you are on mute.
May I start again?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm so sorry. My name is Dawn Lillis. I live at 19960 Cedar Lane, Bend, Oregon 97703. And I've lived in what I call downtown Tumalo for 47 years. Much of my prepared testimony has already been stated, and I absolutely 100% support all the testimony provided thus far. My living situation is similar to the first testimonial speaker, the woman who lives on Wood Avenue. She lives nearer the 2-acre proposed parcel site, and I live nearer the 5-acre proposed site, each site being on the opposite side of Highway 20. I'm very concerned living in the neighborhood in that the access to the 5-acre RV site would entail an entrance to the RV park being at the corner of where 8th and Wharton Street meet. And these are residential streets. Furthermore, there are 40 plus homes east of that RV entrance that have only one means of ingress and egress to our subdivision, and that requires us to drive past the entrance of that proposed RV site. So that is a concern I have, traffic flow in my neighborhood. I'd like to point out a question, or maybe just point out a comment made by the applicant's attorney. He had earlier said that I'm paraphrasing. Conceptually, at this point, there are no renderings of proposed RV parks. If you go to the latter pages of the applicant's documentation, there's an exhibit that specifically shows a 28 site RV park right there, drawn out, scaled, engineered on the 5-acre parcel. So for him to say there's no, it's only conceptual at this point with no renderings, I refer to those pages. There is a drawing on one of those latter pages as an exhibit. Okay. I would also like to question or rebut his comment that he said that there are campgrounds on federal lands right now that do not have septic systems. Therefore, Tumalo not having some septic systems in their RV parks would be akin to the federal lands. That is absolutely incorrect in my opinion, because I've built 2 homes in Tumalo in my neighborhood. Each home required tedious soil composition examinations. And when you're down here in the Tumalo Basin, my home is 4 houses away from the 5-acre proposed site. When you're down here in the Tumalo Basin, the soil composition is highly permeable, porous, and it is an absolute red flag in the eyes of the county planners when we did get permits to build our homes because of the soil composition. Okay. I guess I'll just close by saying I love Tumalo, and I am very offended by the attorney's, again, this comment's been made, his reference to let's lower the gold standard in Tumalo just to get these RV parks in. That's beyond my understanding and comprehension. We should not allow gold standard lowering in Tumalo for these parks. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have Gabriel Kohler.
Okay. Is this working? So this is not actually Gabriel Kohler. This is his wife, Julie Kohler. Is that okay?
That is okay.
Okay. We live at 19925 Juniper Lane in Tumalo. So the address is Bend. And our road ends right at the proposed site off of 8th Street. My main concern, I am also in opposition to this. It just doesn't fit into what our community needs or wants. It doesn't fit into a quiet community at all. I think it's distasteful, but that might not be for this meeting. For this meeting, what I'm concerned with is changing the rule and allowing them to build a septic system while we wait for sewer, because a lot of us in this neighborhood by the 8th Street proposal, we all back up to the river. A lot of us have wells. And I'm concerned that if they add a big septic system that is uphill from us, our wells are all pretty shallow. A lot of people already have contaminated wells, and I'm concerned that that would impact our wells negatively. And then the other thing I was going to say is the attorney said, this is just a small detail, but maybe we need to make sure we're on the same page. That the river that is close by as far as environmental impacts is Tumalo Creek, and it is not Tumalo Creek. We live in Tumalo, and Tumalo State Park is near us, but we are close to Deschutes River. So it would be the Deschutes River that is impacted if it is going to be impacted. I'm also a little bit concerned about that site. It looks like we'd have to take down a bunch of trees and plow down some more land. There are a lot of deer that live in this area. And I don't know if you look at environmental impacts like that, but the mule deer are definitely losing a lot of their land to live on, and that is some of their space, and it looks like it would be plowed down. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next, we have Eli Harrison.
Hi, my name is Eli Harrison. I live at 19949 Juniper Lane. I actually grew up in Tumalo. I'm also a licensed real estate broker in the state of Oregon, just to get that out there. And a lot of what I had to say has already been voiced in opposition to this proposal, but there are a few things that I would like to just bring to the attention of the officer. Primarily, the notification that was used for this meeting and this process for a legislative amendment. They use a mailing radius of 250 feet, which is the absolute minimum required by the county. And in these types of situations for land use developments, when the larger community is going to be impacted, it's typical that they use upwards of 750-foot mailing radiuses to kind of notify everyone who could be impacted by this. So I would just like to get that on the record as my disagreement and disapproval with the way that this process was handled from the outset. As far as the potential negative impacts, I don't want to reiterate much of what was already said. I think the impact of property values is going to be very significant, especially over time. Traffic problems, Riverview Ave, which is the road I live off of on Juniper Lane. It's a dirt street, really bad potholes. It's directly to the west of one of the subject properties. I have a hard time seeing that not being impacted, or sorry, directly to the east of one of the subject properties. I have a hard time seeing that not being impacted, seeing that issue not getting worse. There's no HOA that pays for these road improvements, so we don't have systems in place to deal with that sort of damage. And also, as Julie just mentioned, I also have a well. Our water table is 15 feet. So any sort of large septic system, regardless of how it's installed, the risk is there of potential contamination. And that's not really, we don't really have a backup to that. And I think I'll leave it at that. I don't really want to go much more into anything else, but yeah, I'm strongly in opposition and yeah, really hope you guys reconsider this text change.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is Kelsey. And Kelsey, it appears that you're muted. Kelsey, are you able to unmute yourself?
Maybe we can work through some other names and then come back and see if it works.
We'll move on to Carla Langford.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Carla Langford. I live on 19919 Cedar Lane, and that's Bend, Oregon, 97703. Again, a resident of Tumalo, and I would be one of the properties located directly behind the 5-acre parcel. As the previous, the previous folks have spoke. I would just reiterate what they have said. My concern is also the heavy flow of traffic in our neighborhood, currently having kids attend school, traffic with the bite. It is heavy. You can barely see around cars that are parked. It's pretty blind to the eye. The roundabout has helped with traffic. However, it has also increased traffic, and there is a steady stream that you're kind of a sitting duck as you head out in to cross paths of our community. And it's just Klein Falls and Highway 20. It's not slow traffic, it's big traffic. Having the RV park, I think, is going to increase that significantly and impact our community. Also being a residential access right back on Riverview, we already see people kind of blazing trails to what the connector path is to the river access trail. People kind of go off and park in their own areas, make do driving straight up to the bridge, kind of bypass what the existing access is. And that's a concern for me on top of it. But just the heavy flow of traffic that our roads can't handle, can't maintain. And then being residents that maintain our own roads, it's already hard enough, and extra traffic kind of bearing down with those, and having the larger vehicles, RVs that we have to try to navigate, watch out for our children that are trying to grow up in here in the community, the same thing. So I just want to reiterate what everybody said, but I am in opposition of this as well.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is Susanna.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I think you got me now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Susanna Harrison. I live at 64625 Mock Road here in Tumalo. And I just wanted to reiterate one thing that is something I think we all see happening in Tumalo that is a good thing, and that is the walkability of it. There have always been kids coming and going from the school, and I worry about these big rigs. You know, there's people that zoom in and out of there with their horse hauling. And, you know, sometimes with all the kids riding bikes, I do worry, excuse me, but it's something I've envisioned for a long time. There's not much of a shoulder with the wonderful Tumalo Bite and all that family activity. There's a lot of people coming and going, coming off of that roundabout at a speed. So I just want to reiterate, it's become more walkable. It's become more what we want. And I think we want to protect that. And I don't think we want to see anything happen unnecessarily. I mean, and pardon me, is an emotional thing, but I think about the attorney suggesting that, you know, this could be more of a place where people could be coming and going in a kind of a transitory manner on their way out of town. So I can anticipate that some of those people renting RVs and traveling may not have a ton of experience. And you do not want to be coming through one of those little narrow roads, encountering a horse rig or some large rig from some of the local farms. Not that we don't know what we're doing, but it's not always who you encounter on the other end that is familiar with driving these big rigs and coming in and out of that kind of an area. So let's avoid that. Lots of kids running around, zipping around. I hate to see that change. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
The next person didn't have their name listed, but it's iPad 79.
Okay.
Hi, this is Daniel McNally. I'm at 19909 Elm Lane in Bend, Oregon. Again, that's downtown Tumalo. It's right on the corner of Riverview Ave, right across from the 5-acre lot that the gentleman is proposing. We moved here because of this small, quaint community that we have here. And since I've lived here for the last 70 years, there's been a huge increase in children riding their bikes, walking up and down the streets, et cetera, et cetera. Riverview Ave is a dirt road, as other people have mentioned, filled with potholes. Is this going to be one of the accesses to this 5-acre piece of proposed land? People have been having lots of problems with their wells and septics and, you know, decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So putting in another huge septic system is only going to affect the existing wells as it stands. The noise is going to be obviously largely increased along with the traffic. And as other people have mentioned, in order to get into this area off of 20, you go into the roundabout and you take a right on 8th Ave. And then depending on where they allow access into this place, it looks like it's the map I've seen. There's all kinds of lots plotted right across down the side of Riverview Ave. In order to get out of here, you have to go and take Wharton and then take a left on 7th, which are both tiny roads. And when you get to Cook Ave off of 7th, you usually have to wait 10 minutes or so because of the traffic. It's horrible. And you can't see anything because the cars parked along the streets. How are these huge RVs going to get in and out of here? It's going to be a major traffic problem, a major noise problem. If they do put this up, if somehow, God forbid, it gets approved, is there going to be any kind of a noise barrier put up on Riverview Ave to protect the existing residents? That's something that's huge. Most times when you have these big parks put in, you have to put in some kind of a big retaining wall or a wall to prevent noise and, you know, visual, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm strongly opposed to this. And it would be great if some of the planning board could actually come down and see what the area we're talking about is. And if you do that, you'll see how this is really a not acceptable use of the land. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is MB.
And if you're talking, you are on mute.
You're still on mute. Hearings officer, they're still muted. Would you like us to move on to someone else?
Yes, it looks like Kelsey is back with her hand raised. So let's try that and then we'll come back to MB one more time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, see you. I sincerely apologize for my snafu earlier. My phone's microphone was turned off, so I sincerely apologize. My name's Kelsey Kelly. I live at 20355 Swally Road. Although I am a member of the Planning Commission representing Tumalo, I do not represent the Planning Commission with my disapproval of this. I think I don't really have anything new to say. I think my community members of Tumalo have already spoken eloquently about our concerns environmentally. Tumalo is a very sensitive basin. my whole family, my immediate family all lives down Tumalo, and I was raised down there. I've been for 40 something years, and we, drink from a well. We have septic systems down there. It's a very fragile system that it needs improvement. And I think this proposal is premature, proposing this without those infrastructures in place. I'm also concerned with fire hazards and water to support emergency services. I'm extremely nervous about the traffic concerns that everyone has raised. We don't have the infrastructure to get kids to school properly in a safe manner, for kids to learn how to ride their bikes downtown Tumalo. It's a community that needs better infrastructure before we bring in this kind of development. I understand the applicant's, desire to improve his property, and I don't want to take the right away from him to make improvements of his property, but I don't believe that we need to change our code in order to facilitate, his desire for development. I believe that our code is in place for a reason. It's been very thought out. I sat through multiple hearings and read hundreds of public comments during our Tumalo community plan development. And the Tumalo community is very passionate about how we want to preserve the integrity of our town. And I think that this goes against everything we stand for and is premature. So I appreciate your time. And again, I apologize for my mishap earlier with the microphone. And I appreciate everyone stepping up from our community and representing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
We're going to try MB again, and this is the last person with their hand raised.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, my microphone wasn't working before either. And the woman that spoke before me said everything that I've had going through my mind. This is a very small town. I joke all the time about living in just past the booming metropolis of downtown Tumalo. It is 4 blocks long. If you blink, you might miss it. It is very small. So having 2 RV parks come into this area is going to have a huge impact. And something that the applicant said before is that he's asking for us to lower the gold standard just for his 2 plots. And I ask you, as the person that's evaluating this request, where does that stop? What happens when the next applicant comes in and asks you, just for me, I'd like you to lower the standards? How low are the standards going to go? And when are we going to stop and say enough is enough? This is a very small community. I haven't heard anyone other than the applicant speak in favor of this process. So I just ask that you have that in consideration when you're making your decision. When is enough enough? And I didn't say my name.
I was
My
just
name
about
is
to ask if you
Melissa,
could do that.
Melissa Birchall, and I live at 64775 Laidlaw Lane here in Tumalo, the booming metropolis. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. It sounds like we have worked our way through everyone that either has signed up or volunteered to give their testimony. So we will call the applicant back up for a rebuttal period.
Hearing Officer Brooks, before we start, may I request a 10-minute recess so I can talk with my clients?
Sure. Do you think you could do it in 5?
You cut out on us.
I'm sorry. Do you think you could do it with a 5-minute break instead of 10?
Sure.
Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break. Mr. Smith, I think you may be back at the table, but the camera angle's a little off, so let me know if you're ready.
Thank you, hearings officer. I believe we have everyone back in the room.
All right, let's start back up.
Are we back on? Oh, sorry.
Is it possible to get the camera to get back to the microphone? I can't actually see Mr. Smith. Well, I can see his corner of his head, but that's not good.
I can move.
I think we're limited to audio for right now.
Oh, okay. Well,
We'll make it work here in Officer Brooks.
sure.
Okay, so I'm going to go through. There are a number of points that I'd like to clarify, and then I'll wrap up with some concluding remarks. So forgive me, it'll be a little bit scattered, at least initially, because I'm just responding to numerous comments that were made. First, there was a comment that that Tumalo doesn't need an RV park. Tumalo State Park is just down the road. You know, the data's in the record. I would point you to the county's own study. Tumalo State Park is at capacity. There's no doubt about it. It's overrun. It's at capacity. And then the county study as a whole noted the need for RV parking, camping opportunities throughout the county. So I think that's clearly the data says otherwise. There's a number of comments throughout, people who are concerned about roads, traffic, what I would describe as really these infrastructure issues. I would note that, I mean, if the infrastructure was so poor in Tumalo currently, nobody's proposing a moratorium on all new development. Nobody's saying that the infrastructure can't allow any additional development. And in fact, as our traffic engineer testified to, the current uses allowed on the property are more intensive from a traffic perspective than the RV park. I'm sure we can make the same assumptions when it comes to water usage and or sewer even. The current property is made up of numerous smaller properties that would have to be consolidated for an RV park. All those individual properties could be developed in a much, much more intense fashion. So I think the infrastructure concerns and the additional impacts on that infrastructure, we need to take a step back and compare not the option to no development, but the option to what other developments are already currently allowed. Mr. Dunn testified and noted that he was confused that this is not transitional housing, but there's no plan in place. We're already proposing as part of the text amendment, it's subpart J2B, which states that it can't be used for residential housing. And I'll come back to trying to further emphasize that later. But, you know, the fact that there isn't a plan in place yet for the RV park doesn't change the code. This is, no matter how you cut it, it's not permanent housing. It's not a trailer park. It's not a mobile home park. It can't change into any of those things. You know, we're proposing code that clarifies that this is a recreational vehicle park to be used for recreation. Members of the public come into our community. There was some testimony about the RV park goes against the small town community. I would disagree. I don't think small towns can't have RV parks. I think there are plenty of small towns with RV parks. Maybe you have smaller RV parks. We're not proposing a very large RV park on par with Tumalo State Park. I think you can actually have an RV park that is consistent with the rural character of Tumalo. There was some testimony on noise pollution. I'll come back to that. There was a comment about my comment about the dump station being a stone's throw away. Mostly I was, that's fine. I concede that it's a few miles away. But there was either a comment in the staff report or somewhere else in the record where somebody was saying the nearest dump station is at Lapine State Park. And mostly I was intending to clarify that there are dump stations that are a few miles away, a handful of miles away at the north end of Bend. So you don't have to drive all the way through Bend to Lapine State Park to find a dump station. There was a comment on the map being outdated. To clarify, the map wasn't created by the applicant. If we can work with the county to provide a more updated map that shows the current state of the roads, we'll certainly work to do so during the open record period. I would tend to agree. We would like to make sure that the hearing officer sees all of the recent road infrastructure that's been put in place. I think that road infrastructure is part of the reason why we're here in the first place. And absent that road infrastructure, the new roundabout in particular, I'm not sure we would be coming forward with this application. There was a comment that, concerns that we weren't willing to pay for central sewer. And I think there was some confusion on that part. It's the exact opposite. We were looking for just some relief to be able to do an RV park in the near term that's based on a septic system. And then when the sewer district is able to deliver services, then we'll meet all of the county standards. That's when, the connections will be made for each of the RV sites. That's when laundry will be added. We were just commenting on the difficulty of doing that with an existing septic system. And I would venture to guess that these commercial uses are really what's going to pave the way for these new commercial uses coming on board, connecting to the new sewer district is what's going to pave the way for the rest of the residential properties within the sewer district to ultimately have connections as well. So by no means are we saying we're not looking to pay for something. In fact, the two-step process that we already talked about is probably a more expensive option. It requires, a short-term septic system, and then probably before the end of the life of that septic system connecting to the central sewer. So this is never a question about not being willing to invest in the property or invest in the Tumalo community as a whole. It's the exact opposite. There was a number of testimony about not wanting an RV park as the entrance to Tumalo, and not wanting, or I think it was said a mobile home park at the entrance to Tumalo. Again, we're not proposing a mobile home park. There was also reference that wanting to keep the downtown Tumalo something on par with Sisters. Other people testified that Sisters does have an RV park at its entrance, and Sisters just went through a recent text amendment to allow an RV park in another one of their zones. So if we're using Sisters as the judge, I think Tumalo is doing just fine. There was testimony about not being able to join the lots. Again, that's allowed under the Deschutes County Code. It's allowed in our proposal that it's, the acreage limitation applies to multiple lots under common ownership. Of course, like it happens all the time in Tumalo that somebody, in order for their proposal to go forward, they have to consolidate those lots. This is not unusual. It happens with lots of commercial developments. So I don't entirely understand the objection to that point that we shouldn't be allowed to consolidate the lots. And again, I think it goes back to the more fundamental point, because there are already multiple lots, and there's some pretty intensive uses that are allowed in the Tumalo Commercial District. Each one of those uses could be allowed on the existing lots, and the resulting impact to neighbors, infrastructure, and everything else would be far greater than an RV park that requires that those lots are consolidated in order to have the acreage. Well, it's in the proposal that we made, but it's just also a pragmatic concern. You need a certain amount of acreage to effectively build an RV park. So I think that kind of goes against the real issue here, that this will be less impactful compared to existing uses. There was a comment about why can't we do renderings, and a comment about the exhibit that's part of the transportation analysis. That's conceptual. It's not a rendering. It's just an overview of a site plan, a conceptual. It's nowhere near ready to be submitted as a CUP. confusion again on that we're asking to change the rule with septic. We're not changing the rules. We could proceed with the septic system right now, currently. These concerns that, oh, we're trying to change the rules that'll allow septic and that could have an impact on adjacent wells. That's fundamentally not what we're proposing. We're noting that we could build the RV park currently on septic, and then at a later date, when it is connected to sewer district, add some of those required amenities. There was again testimony about the walkability of Tumalo. There was testimony about concerns about these very large rigs coming from an RV park and that impacting the walkability of Tumalo. The same person also testified about conflicts with horse trailers. You know, I think the broader point here is that the roads in their current form have to be able to accommodate large trailers already. And of course, as part of a conditional use permit application in the future, we will have to address the traffic impacts, the specific traffic impacts on the specific proposed roads. And probably it's going to make the road infrastructure better for the Tumalo community as a whole. And then there was the last, well, I'll return to noise barrier. Our planning commissioner's comments that, you know, there's no need to change the code, that it's well thought out. You know, I would respectfully disagree in this case. As I noted during our initial presentation, you know, we spent a fair amount of time in conversation with county staff trying to unpack why the existing code is the way it is. Why are existing RVs allowed in the Tumalo Commercial District? Were RVs ever allowed? Did they stop being allowed? Was this because of septic? Nobody knows. This is so dated. This current code provision is so dated. It's decades old that nobody is able to easily or to quickly, even after a fair amount of research, state why the code is the way it is. So I think to say it's well thought out is the exact opposite. It's not well thought out. It is a remnant of history, and that's specifically what we're trying to address. So turning to I'll try and be brief, but a couple of remarks. You know, I noted before that we're still viewing, although this is quasi-judicial legislative amendment, we're still viewing it much more on par with a legislative amendment, which often has some iterations, some conversations, some working through things. That's why I asked for 5 minutes to talk with my clients, because we're already, you know, hearing what we're hearing and working through the proposal. Our interest is in finding a way to work this out and to hear the community's concerns and to be responsive to those concerns. We're going to propose some changes that, you know, I think they're at the discretion of the hearings officer to take up. We've got 5 things already that we're working with. Right now, the language that we put together is talking about a sewer district. There is potential for other central sewer services beyond just the sewer district. There's a private sewer district across the highway that has expressed interest and, or at least in the past, in expanding. So we're going to propose some expansion of the language. So, you know, it could be a private central sewer services in the future. Again, there was a lot of concern about this turning into permanent housing. We already proposed a text, or in our original text, it says it can't be used for permanent housing, but my clients have no objection to a 30-day occupancy limit. I know those have been used pretty frequently in the past to ensure that it is actually, you know, vacationers who are coming to our community and can't then become permanent housing or something on par with a trailer park. The acreage. Our intention was to be narrow with this text amendment from the start. Apparently there are 2 properties, and there was at least a handful of comments concerned about the property on the other side of the highway that's not my client's. Again, we're not advocating for text amendments that have wide-reaching implication, and I think everybody's already conceded that even with 2 properties, this is best as a quasi-judicial application. So we're going to go back and look at the acreage limits and see if we can even carve things out further so it's only my client's property. Again, these are things that we're offering to the hearings officer, and we'll defer to you on which one of these, if any, are necessary to meet code criteria. But we have no problems limiting the proposal so it doesn't even impact the property off of Wood Avenue. Quiet hours. Usually that's something that I think we would address in conditional use criteria and compatibility, but we have no problems requiring quiet hours as an additional limitation as the RV park. And then last and probably the most significant, we spent a lot of time earlier talking about this multi-staged approach, and we can initially start on septic, and then once central services became available, then we would add the laundry and each individual site connecting. We're willing to forego that. If it's satisfies the community and satisfies the hearing officer, we are 100% okay with removing that change so that you have to connect to central services. And you have to connect to central services, and you have to provide all of the RV park spots, and you have to provide the laundry facilities, what I referred to as the gold standard. We're okay with pivoting and providing all of those amenities. The intention never was to lower the standard. And I apologize if it came across as being offensive to anybody by suggesting that we wanted to lower the gold standard. I would change it, not call it the gold standard. I would call it the unobtainium standard. The point is, nobody can meet the current standards. If you go and you look at the Deschutes County's own RV park study, if anything, it proved how difficult it is to develop RV parks. The county was looking for their own property to develop RV parks. And if you talk confidentially with county staff, they'll tell you that all three of the options studied are themselves pipe dreams. The issue is that it is near impossible to develop new RV parks anywhere in Deschutes County. And we have found in the Tumalo Commercial District, where historically they were allowed, practically nobody can build one now because of those historic limitations. We can figure out a way to put an RV park in that district to make it compatible with the neighborhood, to not lower even the county standards, and to meet this need in our community. I mean, big picture, that's all we're trying to do. The county has identified this need, and we're just trying to meet that need in this district. The last I'll say, there was a lot of testimony today that I think is opposed to development as a whole, not proposed to the RV park. It's proposed to the development of the property as a whole. And I'll just return to the same comments I made earlier. When it comes to traffic in particular, there are already existing uses that can be proposed for these properties that will be far more impactful to the Tumalo community than the RV park that we're proposing. And we are trying to meet a need that the county has identified, and this property is uniquely situated because of its own access across state lands to the Deschutes River. With that, we can turn to the open record. Because of all the comments, because we're, invited a number of people to have further conversations. We're hoping to talk with more members of the community. We're going to propose a 14-14-14 open record period. This is a quasi-legislative item, so there is no 150-day shot clock. And we certainly would be more interested in taking our time to make sure we're hearing the community and can refine refine the proposal before it's finalized and comes to hearing Officer Brooks. So,
thank you, and I appreciate your willingness to, make this an iterative process, and that's probably appropriate for, legislative amendments. Again, though, I don't look at my role as being, try to find out what the right policy for the county is. I think that's for the board, and so I want to make sure that, my recommendation to them is more about, presenting what the applicant's asking for. So if you want to change, if you want to make some updated suggestions on language and submit that during the open record period, I'm happy to entertain that. With the 14 days, others will get a chance to respond to tell me on the record if it satisfies them or not. But I typically would not tinker with the language myself. I think the criteria are pretty limited in terms of what I should be looking at. The one exception, the one I'm kind of going back and forth on, is the sewage wastewater issue. I get the phased approach, and I think I understand your proposal, which is allow it to be done differently until the sewer system is available, in which case you would connect and get to this higher level of service. I guess what I'm trying to think through the sort of what the hook is basically for the property owner. If the sewer district says, yeah, we're ready and it's available, but you need to make some, like, I don't know, line extensions or something like that. What is the do we have a model, I guess, in the current code of what it would mean for the sewer system to be available?
Yes, and I think Todd Cleveland's comments already note it. Once the sewer district states that sewer services are legally and physically available to the property, you can't do a new or modified septic system anyway. And to clarify, we're taking the kind of two-stage approach off the table. I think it's causing more confusion and concern from the community, and it's not warranted. We're okay waiting until central services are provided, and I think we can amend the code to say that it's not enough to just be in the sewer district. It needs to be in, well, I would say a sewer district or central sewer services that have to be legally and physically available to the property.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. I will wait to see what your new language proposal is then. Let me just make sure you said you were going to come back to noise. Are you addressing that just talking about potentially you would do quiet hours, or did you have other comments on the noise?
No, we're happy to propose quiet hour. Again, I think that was an issue that we could easily address as part of a conditional use permit. I think it's pretty classically addressed in a conditional use permit. But if that appeases several of the neighbors, and I heard multiple people bring it up, we have no opposition to quiet hours. Most well-run RV parks have quiet hours. So if those are self-imposed, if they're imposed a condition of approval as part of a CUP, or if it's actually codified in the code, we don't have a dog in that fight. We're happy to have them be codified in the code to alleviate some concerns.
Good. Right. Thank you for those clarifications. I don't think I have any questions for you. If there's anything else you want to rebut, otherwise I'll have staff see if they have any final comments.
No, thank you for the time.
Yeah. All right. Ms. Stewart, is there anything that staff would like to add before we close the hearing? And just, I guess the preview of the open record period, I have no problem keeping it open for a 14 day period.
Yeah, thank you, hearings officer. I just was going to quickly clarify. I heard a few people in their testimony refer to the maps. There's one that's included on page 10 of the staff report and was also attached to the notice of public hearing. It's very high level. It only shows tax lot boundaries. And this was, again, at a really high level created by staff just to get a general sense of how many properties might meet the siting standards. So this doesn't guarantee, I would say, development potential or that an RV park is proposed on these two specific properties. There is also a map on the project webpage that's very similar, but has a background of an aerial image. That is from dial.deschutes.org. And those aerial images are updated every several years on just a regular interval. So again, it's not specific to this application. If something was completed in the last year or so, it won't show up on that aerial image. That was all that I had to clarify. And then some notes about the open record period. Please address all submittals to me. For email submittals, use my email address, which is audrey.stewart@deschutes.org. The county does not retrieve information from a website link or personal cloud storage device. It's your responsibility to submit all evidence and testimony that you want the hearings officer to consider. Any electronic submittals must be received by the county server by 4 p.m. Please do not wait until the last minute to submit your evidence and testimony. I will look to the hearings officer and the applicant to confirm. It sounds like it's a 14-14-14 open record period. That means the initial open record period would end at 4 p.m. on June 30th. The rebuttal period would end at 4 p.m. on July 14th. And then the applicant would have until 4 p.m. on July 28th to submit their final legal argument. Okay. I'm seeing no comments on the open record period. I'll turn it back over to the hearings officer.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you being efficient with your time and your comments. I've got everything I need, and we'll just wait for the open record and the rebuttal period and the final legal argument to conclude before I make my recommendation. So we'll keep the record open for written purposes only until June 30th for all parties to provide information, until July 14th for all parties to provide rebuttal evidence and testimony, and until July 28th for just the applicant making a final legal argument with no new evidence. Again, that's on the 28th. And it is 3:43. We'll go off the record and close this hearing. Thank you.